Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Miles to Zen podcast. I'm excited that you have all joined in today. And today I'm sharing a book called The Signs, and I hope you can see it here. And it is The New Science of How to Trust Your Instincts by Dr. Tara Swart. So you may know her as the author of The Source. And if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, you'll know that I love this kind of stuff. I love exploring intuition, synchronicity, and that bridge between science and spirituality. So, who is Dr. Tara Swart and why do we care? So, she's a bit of an underachiever. All right, kidding. She started her career in neurology and pharmacology, and then got her MD specializing in psychiatry and later learned a PhD in neuroscience. And she published a book in 2019 called The Source, and that blended neuroscience with the law of attraction. And that quickly became a bestseller. And her work really started resonating with people who were looking to build a bridge between science and spirituality. And I think that that's why I wanted to share this book with you. It's because it's something that the Miles to Zen podcast really tries to do and be a bridge of sorts. And in this case, be a bridge between possibilities. I first heard of her on the Diary of a CEO podcast. And the first time she was on that show, it was so popular. It had the highest viewership that that show had seen yet, something like 20 million views of that episode. And so clearly, there's a lot of people that are interested in her and her message. And she literally just came out into the open just a little while ago about her views on the unseen world, I guess, signs and synchronicities and such in a follow-up interview on the Diary of a CEO podcast. And that's when she really started integrating these. Well, the book that she's written about is really when she started integrating these mystical experiences and intuition with science. And so when they were talking about it, when she announced this book, I realized, okay, I need to read this book. And so the book is great, and hence why I want to talk about it on the podcast. And for those of you who are just starting to explore science and such, it's great for an intro, but it's also got something in there for people who are well down the path as well. And so over the next 10 minutes or so, I thought that we could do a bit of a dive into some of the key lessons and insights into the book. And of course, some additional discussion about signs and synchronicities and intuition. So, what I love about this is she helps us experience the fullness of life. Um, Life in our school can be tough, and she shows through her work how we're still connected even after people pass. And she acknowledged that it wasn't easy for her to share this because it could jeopardize her credibility in scientific circles. And she felt that it was her authentic work and it was healing and necessary. So, much like my recent episode with Orly Alteras, where we talk about intuition and synchronicity and connecting with loved ones on the other side, Tara's story is really personal, and it's how things really began for her in this big way. Much like, with Orly losing her dad, that's when things really opened up for her. And in Tara's case, losing her husband, she ultimately discovered things that made her feel comforted, knowing that he was still present in her life. And she, with all her scientific background, she does a really good job of what I'd say is blending the rational with the spiritual or the unseen. And We, especially in the Western world, have been trained to value logic over intuition, and she really challenges that conditioning. She reminds us that intuition and really listening to our guts and our bodies has so much to teach us that it gives us information to navigate our life more clearly. It helps us reach our goals by using all of our resources, not just our logical ones. And she talks about how signs often can come from unexplained sources. So some people may label these things as paranormal or occult, and she doesn't like those terms because they carry all sorts of negative connotations. And instead, she likes to call them mystical or simply beyond our current understanding. And I think that's so key because there's so much happening in the world right now that is beyond what science can yet explain. And one of the quotes from Kai Dickens that I really love is that you have to be open minded to be a true skeptic. And I really believe that, and I've said this before, that I feel the paradigm shift that is happening right now is, in fact, not AI. I mean, AI is huge, there's no doubting that. But the big paradigm shift that's happening is, I feel, the rising to the surface or the rising to the light of day, these discussions around intuition and extrasensory abilities that we can all access. Tara, through her book, teaches us how we can do this. And she shares why signs matter and how they can just make us feel better. They can make us feel more connected, grounded, supported. And even if that's all you get from this book is a little bit of comfort that you're not alone. And especially if you've lost someone before their time, or even if it is their time, that you can still connect with them, that's worth it. I mean, that helps people feel better. And she talks about the signs can really also break us free from an over reliance on rationality that may not always serve us. And I think about that in terms of the vast amount of data that's available to us now. And there's no way we will ever be able to get through all the data. There's always going to be too much data. So, how do we make decisions now? So, she encourages us to grab a journal, write down the signs that we notice. And this is what we talked about in the interview with Orly as well. And in the books, she shares stories from her life, from others' life, some near death experiences, and just gives examples of what we can see in our own lives. And that really helps if we know what to look for. And she describes signs really as a universal language. Now, this is something that Paulo Coelho brought up and brought to life essentially in his book, The Alchemist, about following the signs. And they essentially are saying the same things. And I love one of her lines is that to help you recognize the signs is that if your first reaction is to question whether those signs are true, you may be asking the wrong thing. We've been primed by our rational age to always look for evidence. And she questions, how is that serving us? So she further describes that when you see a sign and you're not making it up, you really feel it. There's something awe-inspiring when it's not forced. Like when it's forced, you feel like you're trying to make it happen. You're looking for numbers everywhere, for example. And that really reminds me of a moment I had with my son. We were in a big open field and I saw what I thought was a leaf gently floating down. And it looked like it was coming from, from far away from where we were. And I told him to run and try to catch it. And as it floated lower and lower, it just came right to us. I took one step forward, reached out, and it landed right in my hand. And it wasn't a leaf, it was a feather. And it was so cool. It was really awe-inspiring. But my problem being that I like to question everything. So I wasn't quite sure what that feather meant. But now, if I don't know what a sign means, I take it as a sign that I'm on the right path. And this is how I would treat deja vu for, forever. But I really love how she weaves this scientific thinking with spirituality because she reminds us that just because something can't be proven today doesn't mean it won't be proven tomorrow. And she encourages us to create the right conditions for signs to appear. And in order to do that, we need to be open, we need to be healthy, and we need to be present. So when we're not stressed and we're more connected with our bodies, we feel or we become more intuitive. And it's because intuition isn't just mental, it's physical. And that's why we talk about gut feelings, chills, truth bumps. And she brings up that our ancestors had limited external information and had to rely a lot more on intuition for both physical and mental well-being. And they were very connected to the cycles of nature, to their bodies. And in today's world, we've become far more sedentary and more disconnected from our bodies and from nature, which dulls our intuition. And I will have a podcast soon with a woman who teaches force bathing, which is really cool. And we can help get some tips on how we can get more in touch with our bodies and nature through this. But this theme also came up in my interview with Jeanette Biro and Doug Bites, this theme of connecting with our bodies and how it benefits our intuition. So when we are feeling healthy, feeling not stressed, that we're really able to be more connected. And one of my favorite parts of this book is she talks about the benefits of creativity and connection, and that connection with other humans can help us feel healthier, which will ultimately increase our connection to science. So she talks about how engaging in creative practice builds resilience, reduces stress, activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And watching theater or ballet, for instance, can synchronize us with others, promote empathy, shift our brain into an oxytocin state of joy. And she even shares research showing that people who attend cultural events have a 31% lower risk of dying if they go every few months and 14% lower if they go once or twice a year. I think that's incredible. And I was just talking about this with my in-laws last night because they are, pretty active in that sense. And they've just gone to see a play, and they've got more things on the go that are coming up, and they're pretty healthy. So bringing it all together, what's brilliant about the signs is that she gives us proof points throughout the book. So for those of us who live a little more in the left brain or, rational world, it helps the logical mind get on board with the mystical. And this always, it just helps you to be a little bit more open when you've got some proof. So she's not alone in this field of doctors, scientists, academics who've lived and breathed evidence-based thinking, but are now courageously sharing stories of intuition, synchronicity, the unseen world. And this is helping give this work credibility and reach. And I think back to the podcast I did with Dr. Evan Alexander, and he's been featured on a lot of podcasts recently. And that work just really helps provide more evidence, not evidence that we're used to seeing, but more evidence. And this helps really spread the word and get people to open up to more possibilities. So to wrap up, Tara Swart is a practicing psychologist with a PhD. She values the evidence-based science, but she's also learned to appreciate the unexplainable. And that's the whole main theme of this podcast, is about staying open to the possibilities in all areas of our lives, staying curious, staying creative and connected, and these possibilities that you can open up to something that may scare you, that may help you become more than you are today. And also, what I loved about her book as well, just in closing here, is she gives detailed notes and references. And I love that. It's probably the academic in me, but I love to see where I can go for more information, where I can quickly find in her book, certain subjects. And it's great. I would recommend for people to check it out. It's a quick read, it's a powerful read. And if you apply a few of her lessons into your life, I feel that it can change for the better. So let me know what you think of the book if you've read it already, and also any moments of science or synchronicities you've had in your life. If you've enjoyed this podcast today and this impromptu book review, please like and subscribe. At the recording of this podcast, I'm almost at a YouTube milestone for my subscribers, and I'm quite excited about all the views that Miles to Zen has been getting and the downloads. And I just love sharing with you all. So thank you so much for listening. It means so much to me. And see you next week.